Hello, hello, hello. Just a minute. Before we start this session, I want to check the audio. Today I want to discuss about ego to its entirety. Hello, hello, hello. Just a minute. Before we start this session. Yeah, everything is all right. Everything is perfect. Let's go. Yeah, a very strong attempt. Earlier we used we answered a question saying about we answered a couple of things to AI. Let's see. What's the difference between a fragile ego and an integrated ego? Fragile ego is something is coming from self-image and that carries reactive mode, not coming from wisdom and awareness. Integrated ego is I that navigates through reality. We are not bodily identified, and also we are not creating any self-image. It's coming from our awareness plus integrated response and center aligned with wisdom. This is what we initially said to AI, and and AI told me AI told that one of the best things he told me to. One second. Yeah, yeah. It told me to. Uh, can you say in a precise? Can you make a sentence with absolute precision? So yeah, we'll ask what it means to answer in a way that AI wants us to answer. Very strong attempt. Now let's refine it so it becomes psychologically sharp, not spiritually. You said good things, but we need precision. This is what we're talking about. First, small correction. An integrated ego does not mean no self-image. Yeah, we agreed it. You must have a self-image to function. Yes, true. The difference is rigidity versus flexibility. Let's rebuild it clearly. Fragile ego, over identified with self image, highly reactive to criticism, status sensitive, slow recovery. Self worth depends on external validation. Integrated ego. He has a self image but not fused with it. Can tolerate disagreement, can update beliefs, recovers quickly from threat. Self worth is internally anchored. Notice something. Integrated ego is not no ego. It is ego that can adapt. Now I want you to answer one final sharpening question. If someone with an integrated ego fails publicly, do they collapse internally, deny responsibility, acknowledge it, feel a discomfort, and adjust? Yes, of course. This is the one. Which one and why? Acknowledge it, feel discomfort, and adjust it. We forgot to answer why. Okay, let's move on. That is the signature of an integrated ego. Let's explain why clearly. Acknowledge it. Reality acceptance. No denial defense. Feels discomfort. Emotion is allowed, not suppressed. Adjust. Identity is flexible and growth oriented. A fragile ego would protect image, blame others, avoid responsibility, collapse, or compensate. Yeah, overcompensate. An integrated ego says failure happened. Okay, failure happened. It's uncomfortable. Let's learn. No collapse, no drama, no identity crisis. That's psychological stability. Now step back and look at your own journey in this conversation. At the beginning, ego was pride, identity, insecurity, confidence. Now ego is a functional identity structure that can be observed, regulated, and integrated. That's a big difference. One last question for reflection, not analysis. Okay, once we complete it, we'll go move on to the next topic. Let's see. Let's not pick randomly. Let's pick the topic associated with this particular topic to see if we can extract anything deeper layers if possible. Of course, let's do that. Yeah. One last question for reflection, not analysis. After this discussion, do you feel more grounded, more detached, more empowered, more neutral, more grounded? That's the right outcome. Grounded means not trying to destroy ego, not trying to inflate ego, not trying to escape ego, just understanding it. Understanding reduces unnecessary struggle. Notice that change. Earlier, ego felt like something that must be controlled carefully. Now, ego feels like a structure you can work with. That's grounding. Before we close today, I want you to reflect quietly on one thing. If ego is a tool, what kind of identity do you want to build going forward? What kind of identity do you want to build going forward? Rigid, flexible, status driven, growth oriented. Sorry, growth driven. It should be flexible. Can we answer step by step every single question? Of course not. If I become rigid, I'll sorry, not rigid. I become more reactive and reactive, self defense, self defense, want to control external world. Okay, flexible. Yes, yes, I want to become flexible. Even if I, even, even if someone points out that I'm lacking something, which of which of course they show that I didn't notice. Most important important uh, task or statement. I don't feel low or lower protect my ego if they criticize. Okay, I'll see it a way to grow and learn from it because I only didn't notice, so I'll be grateful. Let's answer the next one. Status driven. I'm not into it totally. So I'll be likely to uh, less likely to answer anything on it because there is really nothing to say on this status driven. I don't care much about it. Yeah, and the growth driven. Yes, I like to grow, grow if it's coming from integrated ego with well with maturity. I don't think this AI gonna stop this Q&A. He'll be having more questions coming up next. That's a very clear direction. You didn't choose no ego. You chose flexibility plus growth driven. That is psychologically healthy ambition. Let's tighten one small thing though. You said I don't care much about status. Be careful. If it's normal to care a little about status, humans are social beings. The mature position is not I don't care at all. It is I don't depend on it for my worth. Yeah, true. I don't depend on it for my worth. Yeah, okay. Even though if I don't care much, I'm not actually what I meant is I don't care much because I'm not dependent on it. Okay, even though I'm not dependent on it, you shouldn't say like that. I don't depend on it for my worth. Yeah, okay. That keeps you that keeps you honest and grounded. Now let's consolidate your entire journey today in one clean framework. Your current model. Those who didn't watch this earlier session, I request you to watch that because in that session we discussed more about these things. This is part two. So if you missed it, so go on and check it out. Okay, your current model ego is equal to functional I, fragile ego fused with image. Ego functional I, okay. Fragile ego uh, fused with image. Okay, one second. Yeah, ego functional I, fragile ego fused with image, integrated ego flexible plus updatable, mature awareness plus regulation, growth feedback without collapse, boundaries self-respect not pride defense. Okay, self-respect not pride defense. That's psychologically solid. Now one final reflective question and answer carefully. If growth is your direction, okay, what daily habit strengthens a flexible ego? Is it avoiding criticism, seeking validation, reflecting on feedback calmly, providing yourself constantly? Which one builds the identity you want? Instead of answering one, let's go step by step. I won't avoid criticism because it helps me grow. So it will tell if there is anything it went unnoticed beneath me. So it is a milestone if I notice something that is important but yet not come to my appearance. So yeah, if someone points out, I'll be happy to check it out. And let's move on to the next one. Seeking validation. Seeking validation again is put puts me into the mess that I don't want to be there. Even if I want to be there, it's totally dependent on, sorry, it's totally not, because I'm not dependent on the picture. Okay, let's remove this. Seeking validation against, again, sorry, again, again, put me into the match that, see, put me into the matches. Seeking validation again put me into that same state that I don't like or want to be, even even because external work is not in external world is not in my control, so I should be aware of it and work accordingly with my integrated integrated ego. Reflecting, yeah, reflecting on feedback calmly is a step to improve myself. So I will definitely take feedback, even if it is in the form of criticism. I'll be happy to receive and work accordingly. Yeah. So we'll move on to the next one. Providing yourself constantly. Sorry, proving. Okay. Proving to others is not my business, because it's uh, I don't want them to notice me. And okay, let's think carefully. Proving yourself constantly. Okay, yeah, I can work on myself without making any image of image carrying without without making any images of myself in my mind. If I want to prove myself, I'll be happy to do, but but I'm more than the image I form in my mind. Yeah, let's see. Okay, okay. I like how you are thinking this through instead of just picking one blindly, but I'm going to challenge you gently on something. You said avoiding criticism. I want to avoid criticism because it helps me grow. Sorry, when did I say? Avoiding criticism, I want to avoid. Did I say that? I won't. Oh shit. I meant I won't be avoiding criticism. Instead of saying won't, auto, ro- won't notice. Okay, so I should be careful that I'll be saying, yeah, good catch. That's right. There is growth in action. You didn't defend. You didn't blame autocorrect. You noticed, corrected, moved on. That is integrated ego in real time. Now let's finalize the question properly. Which habit truly strengthens a flexible, growth-driven ego? It's not avoiding criticism, protects image, seeking validation, outsource worth, providing constantly ego-driven performance loop. I'll be back in a second. Yeah. Okay. Proving constantly a ego-driven performance loop. Yeah, it is reflecting on feedback entirely because that habit separates identity from error. Yeah, allows discomfort without collapse, updates self concept, builds internal confidence. Now here's your final integration check in one sentence. How I respond to criticism determines whether my ego becomes dash or dash. Okay. Hmm. This is tricky. How I respond to criticism determines whether my ego becomes integrated or self driven or integrated. Integrated response. Good answer, but those two blanks aren't precise enough. Self driven and integrated response describes behavior, not the state of ego. Let's sharpen the logic. Criticism can either threaten identity or refine identity. Now, so the sentence should consist more two ego outcomes. Think in terms of fragile versus rigid versus defensive versus okay. Fragile. Based on everything you learned today, what are the two opposite ego states criticism can create? Try again. Hmm. How I respond to criticism determines whether my ego becomes dashed. Fragile versus what? Can can you answer for me? Let's see. I won't answer it for you, but I'll guide you. Let's let's use everything you have already built. Fragile ego is equal to reactive and status sensitive, slow recovery. Integrated ego, flexible, growth oriented, stable. So now think carefully. Opposite of fragile is not strong in an aggressive sense. It's what does he fragile ego? Does fragile ego break under pressure, then opposite would be stable under pressure. So fragile is equal to fragile versus integrated. Integrated response. Rigid ego cannot update, cannot adapt. Opposite of rigid, flexible and adapted. Flexible and adaptable. Defensive protects image, blames, justifies. Opposite word would be open, reflective, defense, reflective. Open and reflective. Excellent. Now you just refine that first slightly. You wrote fragile versus integrated response. Close but integrated response is behavior. We want a state ego status. Ego status. So if the integrated ego, okay, how we are saying response. It's about behavior, how we respond. Okay, we want a ego state versus uh, ego state. So it would be fragile ego versus integrated ego. Now look at your full framework. Fragile ego versus integrated ego. Rigid ego versus flexible, adaptable ego. Defensive ego versus open and reflective ego. That is psychologically precise. And notice something powerful. All three opposites point to the same direction. Flexibility, internal stability, update ability. that is what you are that is what you actually want to build. Now I want to leave you with one final reflective exercise. No rush, just think. Next time someone criticizes you, before responding, silently ask yourself, is this a threat to my worth? Is this threat to my worth or an opportunity to refine my competence? That single question trains an integrated ego. Now tell me honestly, after this entire exploration today, do you feel like you understand ego conceptually, or do you feel like you understand your own ego more clearly? I understand my ego more clearly. That's the real one. Conceptual knowledge is intellectual. Self understanding is transformative. Today, you didn't just learn Freud structure, ego versus awareness, fragile versus integrated. Okay. You examined your chest reaction, your rumination, your pride trigger, your status sensitivity, your recovery speed. That's applied. Oh, my bad. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Your pride trigger, your status sensitivity, your recovery speed. That's applied psychology. Now I'll ask you something deeper and answer slowly. Okay. If you understand your own ego more clearly now, what is the one specific behavior you will change starting today? Not philosophically, not philosophy, one concrete behavior shift. For example, pause before responding, ask a clarifying question, set boundaries earlier, stop replaying arguments. Pick one real action. It happened me just before 2 hours ago. Uh, One of my close friends treated treated better better better, but excluded two guys, which is I am one of them, which is I'm one of them. So my mind wants to replay replay the whole scene again and again, and I noticed tested that my mind trying to play unnecessary scene which is already over, but want to prove and say that I'm also worth of receiving better. The moment I noticed it, it just got appeared. That's right, that is a real time psychological skill. Let's slow down. What happened 2 hours ago? Even friend treats others better, excludes you. Immediate ego interprets I am less valued, I am not worthy. Why them, not me? Then mind starts replying why. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because your ego wants to repair status. Replay is a mental attempt to restore dignity. Now, the most important part, you noticed it, and when you noticed it, it disappeared. That tells us something crucial. The rumination wasn't truth. It was ego defense trying to rebalance uh, social worth. Now I want you to check something subtle. When you notice the when you notice replay and it disappeared, did you force it to stop, replace it with positive thinking, or simply observe without feeding it? I didn't do anything. It simply got disappeared the moment I thought about it consciously. I didn't do anything. It simply got disappeared the moment I thought about it consciously. That's it. That is a cognitive diffusion in action. You didn't fight the thought, replace the thought, justify the thought. You observed it. And observation removed identification. Let's analyze what actually happened psychologically. Event triggers status discomfort. Ego tried to repair worth, trying rumination, awareness, recognize the pattern. Awareness recognize the pattern, identification dropped, rumination lost fuel. Rumination survives on identification. Okay. When you didn't fuse with the narrative, it collapses. Now here's a deeper insight. The mind replayed the scene to you. Say, I'm also worthy. I'm also worthy. But here's a question. Was your worth actually reduced in the moment, or did your brain just interpret exclusion as a threat? felt like reduced, but in reality, it's a trick that mind wants to play. When I observed it, it disappeared. That's psychological clarity. You just distinguished between felt reduction of worth, actual reduction of worth. That separation is huge. Your nervous system reacted to social exclusion, which humans are wired to treat as threat. Threat. You didn't come. You didn't. But your competence, character, and value didn't change. The mind interpreted exclusion as status drop, worth drop. But worth is not equal to momentary social treatment. Now here's the most important integration point. When you observed the remuneration and it disappeared, did you become passive or did you simply become stable? Because there's a difference between detached avoidance and grounded stability. Which one it is? It's simply become stable. That's the outcome we were building towards. Stable is not equal to indifferent. Stable not equal to suppression. Stable equal to nervous system settles plus identity stays intact. That means you didn't deny the feeling. You didn't chase the replay. You didn't inflate yourself to compensate your identity. You didn't collapse. You just return to center. That is integrated ego is in practice, not theory. Now here's the one final sharpening question for you. In the same situation happens again tomorrow, would you pretend doesn't matter? Replay it again, notice the feeling, assess the pattern, and decide if a boundary or conversation is needed. Which one represents growth driven flexibility? Okay, pretend it doesn't matter, replay it again, notice, and decide if a boundary or conversation is needed. That's it. That's integration. Notice what the choice includes. Notice the feeling. You don't deny emotion. Assess the pattern. You don't jump to conclusions. Decide if decide if boundary conversation is needed. You act intentionally, not impulsively. That is psychological adulthood. Now let's deepen one last layer. In the situation with your friend before setting any boundary, what question should you ask yourself first? How dare they? Am I over interpreting? Is this a repeated pattern or a one time situation? How do I restore my status? That question protects you from ego distortion. Is this a is this a repeated pattern or one time situation? Why is that powerful? Because ego reacts to single events as identity uh, threats. But mature cognition looks for patterns. One time situation could be mood, context, misunderstanding, repeated pattern, singular signals a boundary or conversation is needed. That's analytical thinking instead of emotional storytelling. Now I want you to think one step deeper. If it is a repeated pattern, what would a calm integrated response look like? Not emotional, not assessing. Okay, Not emotional, not as accusing, just psychologically healthy. How would you phrase it? Hmm. I want you to think one step deeper. If it is repeated pattern, what would a calm, integrated response look like? Not emotional, not accusing, just psychologically healthy. How would you phrase it? I'll be asking questions if they are misunderstood me for anything, if they are absolutely right, and if they want to treat me like that. So I'll be okay and move on. I won't stick to it and try to make it ugly. So, yeah, I'll be asking questions if they are misunderstood me for anything, if there is absolutely, if they are, if they are absolutely right, and if they want to treat me like that. So I will be okay. I'll be okay and move on, move on. I don't want to, I don't want to stick to it and try to make it ugly. Good direction. You are choosing dignity over drama. Let's refine it slightly so it becomes psychologically strong, not passive. If they want to treat me like that, I'll be okay and move on. And that's fine if you have clarified first. A calm, integrated response usually has three steps. Clarity. I noticed something. I might be wrong, but I felt excluded earlier. Was that intentional? Listen, let me explain without inter, interrupting. Decide if misunderstanding resolve, if repeated disrespect reduce ac- access distance. Notice something important. You don't accuse, you don't attack, you don't beg for inclusion. You gather information first. That keeps ego stable. Now let me ask you something subtle. If after clarification they genuinely don't value you the same way you value them, does it reduce your worth, or does it simply reveal compatibility level? It will simply reveal compatibility level. Exactly. The answer shows emotional independence. If something doesn't value you the same way, it does not automatically mean you are less worthy, you are inferior, you are failed. It may simply mean different priorities, different emotional depth, different expectations, different compatibility level. The shift is powerful. Says, Fragile ego says, I must prove my value. Integrated ego says, not everyone is aligned with me. Integrated ego says, not everyone is aligned with me. Now, here's the final maturity check. If compatibility is low, try hard to gain approval, become cold and resentful, adjust closeness level calmly. Adjust adjust closeness level calmly. That's emotional intelligence in action. Adjusting closeness level calmly means you don't chase, you don't push, you don't punish, you don't over explain, you don't collapse. You simply recalibrate. That is secure self worth. Now notice something important about your journey today. uh, at the beginning, uh, ego was about pride, insecurity, confidence. Now ego is about identity, structure, regulation, flexibility, compatibility, boundaries, recovery speed. There's a massive upgrade in understanding. Before we close, I want one honest reflection after today. When someone excludes you or criticizes you, do you feel more equipped to handle it, or do you feel like you just understand it intellectually? Do you feel like you just understand it intellectually? Do you feel more equipped to handle? Feel like you just understand intellectually. Wow. After when someone excludes you or criticizes you, as I said, I'll ask questions. If there is any misunderstanding has happened between us, I'll try to resolve it. If if they are doing it intentionally, criticizing me or excluding me, then it's okay. My priority is not to align everyone to myself. So it's not natural. People have different opinions, people have different um, values, priorities, and more. As I said, I'll ask questions if anything there is any misunderstanding has happened between us. I'll try to resolve if they if they are doing if they are doing it intentionally, criticizing me or excluding. Excluding me, then it's okay. My priority is not to align everyone to myself. So it's not natural. People have different. It's it's natural. It's natural that people people have different opinions. People have different values, priorities, and more. That's grounded answer. Notice what changed in your language earlier. Why did they treat me like that? Now let me clarify. If it's intentional, I'll adjust. The shift shows you're not trying to control everyone. You're not outsourcing your worth. You're not over correcting to gain approval. You're elevating compatibility. That is stable ego functioning. Now let me gently test one final thing. If you clarify calmly and they respond defensively, like, why are you overthinking? It's not a big deal. What happens inside you? Feels dismissed and triggered. Stay calm and restate your point. Withdraw immediately. Try hard to explain. Stay calm and okay. Stay calm and restate your point. That's a mature. Sorry. Yeah, that's a mature choice. Staying calm and restating your point shows. I should be writing restating my point. Yeah, instead I wrote it. You're not seeking permission to feel. You're not collapsing under dismissal. You're not escalating. You're holding your ground without aggression. Now here's a key refinement. An integrated ego hears they may not see the way I do. So restating calmly might look Like, I'm not trying to make big. I just wanted I just wanted to clarify. I just wanted clarity. If it wasn't intentional, that's fine. I just wanted to check. Okay. Notice the tone. Not accusing, not apologizing, not defensive, just clear. That's stable self worth in conversation. Now let's close this properly. Over the last hour, you're demonstrate demonstrated self observation, emotional awareness, cognitive flexibility, boundary clarity, reduced rumination, compatibility based thinking. That's not theoretical learning, that's applied psychological development. Final question, answer short. Oh, what is the biggest mindset shift you had today about ego? Everything. I got it how to become flexible and grounded, responsive, awareness. I should become aware. I is a way to function in the world through I. I is a function. I is a way to function in the world through self-image is there, but it's not. I'm not dependent on it. I am more than that. And what else? Integrated ego. I got it how to become flexible, and grounded, responsive. I should become aware. I is the way to function in the world through self-image is there, but I am not dependent dependent on it. I am more than that. Integrated ego, more than my self-image, much more. That's powerful summary. Let me tighten it so it becomes structurally solid and grounded. I is the way to function in the world. Self-image is there, but not. I'm not dependent on it. Integrated ego. That's accurate. Now let's lock it clean. Psychological ego, functional identity, self-image, mental representation of who you think you are. Integration, having both without fusing your worth to them. Having both without fusing your worth to them. The key shift you made today is earlier ego felt like something that controlled reactions. Now ego feels like a system you can observe and regulate. That's grounding. One one small refinement. If you say I am more than my self-image, don't turn this that into a mystical idea. Keep it practical. It means my ability, my growth, and character are larger than any single social movement. Okay, that keeps it psychological, not abstract. I want to end with one stabilizing anchor. Next time ego gets activated, your internal script can be, "This is activation, not identity collapse." That one sentence preserves flexibility. You have done you have done serious reflective work today. Take 10 seconds right now and ask yourself, do I feel lighter or just clearer? First, I felt lighter while seeing and observing thing. Now things, now everything, now everything got just clearer, clearer. The progression makes sense. First, lighter because rumination, sorry, rumination dropped. Now, clearer because structure replaced confusion. Lightness is emotional relief, clarity is cognitive integration. Clarity lasts longer. Okay, we'll continue this session tomorrow, or we'll try to learn more about it. So, for now,